we make things. We use our hands, minds, and machines to build, to fix, to improve. We're known as do-it-yourselfers, home improvement fans, fix-it fanatics, inventors. At our core, though, we're all makers. So let's jump in and make something. Hi, I'm Ron Hazelton. Now listen, have you ever struggled with a dull kitchen knife, then struggled again trying to sharpen it? Well, you'll want to be sure and catch today's show. Knife sharpening advice is often steeped in folklore and fiction. In this episode, though, we're going to set things straight, separating fact from myth when it comes to getting a really sharp, long-lasting culinary edge. Then we'll refurbish a wooden table by stripping off the old varnish, restoring the color, and applying a beautiful, long-lasting polyurethane. This method will work on many different kinds of furniture. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy. You know, for tools to perform this well, they need to be properly set up and really sharp. And here in the kitchen, the same is true. No tool is more used or more important than the culinary knife. When it comes to getting a knife sharp, though, misconceptions abound. So maybe it's time to separate fact from fiction. A knife steel can sharpen knives. You got it. A knife steel is used to straighten rather than sharpen an edge. Let me show you what I mean. I'm using this piece of foil to represent a knife edge. With use, the edge can become folded over, preventing the knife from cutting properly. The purpose of a knife steel is to straighten this bent edge. Truly sharpening a dull knife requires that the edge angle or bevel be restored, and that requires a knife sharpener. The best method for sharpening is a traditional abrasive stone. That's what my butcher uses. Now, a sharpening stone will reshape a knife edge. However, using it properly requires that the knife be held at a consistent angle as it's passed over the surface, something that's very difficult to do without considerable practice. A better method is to use a sharpener with a built-in guide that will hold the blade at precisely the correct angle, from the beginning of the stroke to the end. Electric sharpeners grind away too much metal. It's easy to imagine that an electric sharpener might do this. However, a high-quality electric sharpener using diamond abrasives actually removes less metal than a manual device. That's because a top-end electric sharpener operates at a speed of over 3,500 revolutions per minute. Since the abrasives are moving past the knife edge so much faster than would be possible when sharpening by hand, they can be much finer. Finer abrasives not only remove less metal, they also produce an edge that's better defined and extremely sharp. The only way to get really sharp knives is with an electric sharpener. Clearly, electric knife sharpeners have many advantages. However, it is possible to get some of the same benefits in lower-priced manual sharpeners. This one, for example, has built-in angle guides and multiple stations for sharpening and honing. Small diamond-coated discs produce a sharp cutting edge quickly without removing excessive metal. When using a manual sharpener like this one, only moderate downward pressure is required. Sharpening an edge and honing an edge are the same thing. Actually, they're two different processes. Good sharpening systems first shape the edge with a coarser abrasive, then polish the edge with finer abrasives in the honing stage. The final stage also introduces a slightly larger angle, resulting in an edge profile that is shaped similar to a Gothic arch. This kind of dual-angle knife edge is stronger and lasts longer. Asian-style knives differ from American or European types. In addition to their different blade shapes, the knives have different edge angles. Asian-style knives are typically made with a 15-degree edge angle, while traditionally, European and American knives have a 20-degree angle. However, things are changing. If you've purchased an American or European style knife in the last 2 or 3 years, it may have the 15-degree edge found on Asian style knives. Bottom line, if you have both Asian and European American styles in your kitchen, you'll want a sharpener that can accommodate both. The bottom of a ceramic cup is a great knife sharpener. While ceramic cups will remove metal from knives, cup bottoms can be overly rough and uneven, so much so that it's possible to actually nick and damage the blade. There is, of course, also the problem of trying to hold the knife at a consistent angle. The best sharpness test is trying to slice a sheet of paper. That's right, the acid test for a sharp blade is its ability to slice completely through a piece of paper without shredding or tearing. A blade this sharp will have no trouble cutting cleanly through a ripe tomato with only a couple of strokes. A plastic carving board will dull knives more quickly than a wooden one. Well, it really depends on the plastic. Hard acrylic plastic or glass will take its toll on any blade, dulling it quite quickly. Softer polypropylene or polyethylene boards like this one are much gentler on blades and are considered more hygienic than wood. New or high-quality kitchen knives don't require sharpening. Knives made of the finest steel will hold an edge longer, but even the best knives dull with use, and the initial factory edge only lasts for the first few days or weeks of use. For the remaining 99.9% of a knife's useful life, its edge performance depends entirely on how it's resharpened. Maintaining the initial factory edge is not particularly relevant, especially since modern-day sharpeners can put a better-than-factory edge on every knife. The best way to judge the quality of a knife is by its price. Certainly, price can be an indicator of good quality, but not always. So, how do you tell if a knife is made of good steel and is properly heat-treated or tempered? Take the knife and lightly tap on a hard surface. If it rings like a bell, most likely it's of the proper hardness. If it sounds muffled, it's on the soft side. Also, the blade on good quality knives extends all the way through the handle, creating a steel spine tip to tip. As Ben Franklin said, there was never a good knife made of bad steel. But even a good knife is not of much use unless it's properly sharpened. And that's true.
Today I'm answering an SOS from my neighbor Christine, who has given up on her kitchen table because she considers it, well, beyond help. I'm going to have a look.
Hey, good morning, Christine.
Hey, Ron. Good to see you.
Hey, Oliver. How you doing, buddy? So this is the table,
This
huh?
is it.
Oh, wow. This is the table that gets all the use, right?
You bet.
Constantly, yeah. You know what I think happened here is I think the original finish on here was on the thin side. And what's happened with all the cleaning and just time and plates being dragged across this, that finish is just plain worn off. In fact, it's worn so much that even the color underneath the stain is gone in some places. So we're looking pretty much at bare wood right here. So what I want to do is kind of take this back to how it looked when it was new.
That would be great.
But the finish I'm going to put on here is going to be a lot tougher. It's going to hold up to the kind of use a kitchen table gets, all right?
That's what we need.
Now this job is one I prefer to do in my shop, so I'm taking the top of the table back with me.
Now the first thing I'm going to want to do is remove what's left of this finish on here. And I'll be using a paint stripper. This is a thick paste brushable type. Okay, now I'm going to be applying this to the tabletop with a fairly wide, natural bristle, disposable brush. Now the whole idea when I'm working with stripper here is I don't want to over brush it. I want just enough to spread this out because the chemicals in the stripper that do the work are gases. And the more I brush this, the more they escape into the air, the less are left behind to do their job, which is to loosen the paint up. So just enough brushing to lay it on the surface like this. Now the whole idea with stripper is to let the chemical do the work. So I want to give this just a few minutes, and if you look at the surface here, you'll begin to see that the finish is actually bubbling up. It's lifting itself from the wood underneath, and that's what we want to be looking for. Now to lift that old finish off the surface, I'm going to use a wide putty knife. I'm going to make one modification to this tool first though, and that is I want to round off the corners here so that they wouldn't dig into the surface.
By holding the putty knife at a shallow angle and applying moderate pressure as I move across the surface, I can remove nearly all the old finish in one pass. A small box makes a good receptacle and gives me an easy way to clean my putty knife. I'm applying the stripper to smaller sections at a time to prevent it from drying out and allowing the finish to become hard again. Now I've opened the shop doors and have plenty of cross ventilation while I use these chemicals.
Now that paste stripper took off most of the finish. There's a little bit of residue here though. So I'm going to go over it a second time, only this time I'm going to be using a liquid stripper.
I apply the liquid stripper liberally with a brush. It flows into the wood grain, loosening the old finish there, and softens anything left behind by the paste. Medium fine steel wool helps dislodge any stubborn remnants and lift them from the surface. To prevent scratches, it's important to make long, straight passes in the direction of the wood grain.
Well, I'd say all of that finish is off, but I am going to go one more step here. I don't always do this, but most of the time I like to. These strippers have waxes in them, and this last step is a wash with lacquer thinner. And the idea here is to wash off any of that wax that's been left behind.
Again, I brush on the lacquer thinner, then use fine steel wool for this final cleaning. Now it's time for a little sanding, and I do mean little. This tabletop is oak veneer, probably only a 1/16 of an inch thick or less. I'm using a finishing sander with 220 grit sandpaper.
Well, the table is stripped, sanded, and clean. Now it's time to put some color back or stain it. Now remember, I'm only doing the top of this table, so I've got to get this color to be a pretty close match to the base. What I've done is taken a couple of colors here, Special Walnut and Ipswich Pine, and I've put samples of each on this board right here. Well, let's see how this looks. I'd say the Special Walnut right here is a little bit dark, and the Ipswich Pine might be just a shade light. But I bet if I intermix these two, I can get pretty close.
The Special Walnut will be my base color. To lighten it just a bit, I'm using a baby syringe to add a small amount of the pine stain.
Now you can apply stain with a rag or a brush. I kind of prefer a brush. I like to put it on fairly wet and then wipe it off with a cloth or a paper towel.
Here too, I work in the same direction as the grain, wiping in long, even, straight strokes.
Well, the color's restored. I'm going to let this dry now for at least 24 hours, and then I'll come back and put a clear top coat on. You know, in just about any refinishing or painting job, preparation is the most important part of the project. And I think we've done a pretty good job of preparing this here. It looks fantastic. Now, I'm about ready to start putting on the clear top coating. This is a polyurethane, and you notice that I'm stirring it here. You may wonder, well, why is he stirring it? It's a clear material. Well, this is actually a semi-gloss polyurethane, and the reason I'm stirring it is that the flattening agent can settle to the bottom of the can. So what I want to do is pick it up and redistribute it throughout the liquid here.
I give the table a final dusting to remove anything that might have settled onto the surface.
Now this is an oil-based material, so I'm going to be using a natural bristle brush. And you know, I don't skimp on my brushes on a job like this. I want to make sure that I'm using the best brush I can find. for a couple of reasons. It's going to lay a much smoother finish, and the likelihood of me dropping bristles out and leaving them in the coating is going to be very small.
Rather than work directly from the can, I like to pour the finish into a clean container. Then load the brush by dipping it in and gently slapping it on the sides to remove any excess material. I'm using a satin polyurethane that will enhance the wood grain, give a soft sheen, and most importantly, provide a tough, durable surface that will stand up to spilled liquids and scuffing. In this case, I'll apply 3 coats and sand lightly in between. The final coat is thoroughly dry, and I'm now applying paste finishing wax with a pad of 4/0 steel wool. Now, doing this eliminates any minor surface imperfections and gives the tabletop a smooth, almost velvety feel. I let the wax dry for a few minutes, then buff it with a soft cloth. Well, it's time to put this piece of furniture back into service.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Wow! It's like a new table.
Turned out nice, isn't it?
It's gorgeous.
You know, it actually is in a way better than a new table because the finish that I put on here is really tough.
It has to be. Okay, nobody can eat on this.
Okay? No. I want to show you something, okay? I've got 3 coats of polyurethane on here. It'll take just about anything. And so to demonstrate, watch this.
Watch, Oliver.
You see how that water beads completely up on the surface? So any kind of spill like that, you just take a cloth
Watch.
and wipe it up. I put a coat of wax on here, maybe like twice a year. I'll give you some. You know, put a little more wax on it.
Okay.
And that's really all you're going to have to do to care for this. It's really, so use it. What I'm saying is
Ron,
it looks
this is
nice, it's pretty,
wonderful.
but use it.
Well, you can't have milk without brownies. Made these fresh for you this morning.
Ooh-wee. Hey, you know what?
Thank you for my new table.
You're very welcome. I'll do a table anytime for fresh brownies.
That's a
Do
deal.
we have one?
That's a deal.
Oh!
Oh!
Oh! You know, but from now on, you won't have to cry over spilled milk.
Sometimes we can really be surprised at the beauty that's lying just beneath the surface. That's certainly the case here.
I'm sure this has happened to you. You try to loosen or tighten a bolt like this with the head rounded off, and you find that an adjustable wrench is practically useless. Well, this is where you need a locking jaw plier. These are adjustable with this knob back here. You want to turn this until the pliers really snap into place. But once it's there, it's like having a vise on the head of that bolt, and you can turn it as much as you want to. But not all of these are created equal. This one, which we use in the bolt, has got a straight jaw. For curved things, like this piece of pipe, you'll want to choose a locking plier that has a curved jaw.
To view today's projects again, visit ronhazelton.com, where you'll find hundreds of how-to videos available 24/7. Free home improvement videos online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.